Well, it's going to be fun because the Rangers get started against the Penguins, and man, I'll tell you what, it's just great to be back in the playoffs again after sitting it out the last few years. And man, I can just feel it. I kind of feel like it with the Mets.
Yeah.
Turning on the Mets, and if it weren't for Kyle Schwarber last night, Scherzer would have had another great night. But watching the Mets and watching the Rangers right now, and of course the Yankee fans out there got their thing. And the other thing that I did watch yesterday, which I swear to God I want like Madison Square Garden to become a part of, is the damn Memphis Grizzlies. Now they lose to the Golden State Warriors yesterday because
craziness, Draymond Green, the whole thing.
Yeah, but Steph Curry's unbelievable.
Yep,
and Ja Morant will learn. He just needs more time to figure certain things out. And like Steph Curry is just so cunning and crafty, both offensively and defensively. But like the Memphis Grizzlies, that looks like a place you want to go watch a basketball game.
Sure, absolutely.
Young, flying up and down the court.
Yep.
I mean, playing defense. Even though both teams scored a bunch of points last night. I mean, that's what I want the Knicks to look like. Is there any possible way? Now, I know we don't have a Ja Morant. That doesn't mean like guys like R.J. Barrett and Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quickly and Mitchell Robinson and Jericho Sims. Guys like that can't look like this.
Yeah.
I mean, like just flying up and down the court. We got guys that are quick side to side, laterally. R.J. Barrett's coming into his own.
Yeah.
Obi Toppin's got the lift of a Ja Morant. I mean, why can't we look like this?
Let's hope at some point. I mean, the Knicks are the farthest thing from my mind right now. It's at least a very entertaining series if you're into NBA basketball. Don't really care about what's going on with them until they start making some offseason moves.
But you understand what I'm saying?
I do, yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I'd love for them to look like a playoff team. I think everybody would, for sure. But you got a long way to go. I mean, last year seems like a dream more than reality, and this year was more of the reality. So we'll see what they end up doing in the offseason. But yeah, I don't. There's nothing about the Knicks that are interesting right now until this postseason ends and then they get going and doing some offseason work. Jets and Giants finish up their draft. Of course, lots of guys in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round that we don't know much about, but we will learn. But, man, the amount of players that the Giants brought in, it is crazy to see that
and
list.
they all play different positions.
Yeah. Look at this. CBS Sports Network put it up. I mean, it's like 50 guys.
So, 11 guys. And, the thing about it is Joe Shane's taking a lot of shots on goal. They're not going to be able to sign. They're going to have to make some more roster moves. I mean, because there's just not enough money to sign everybody. And I'm sure they were trying to figure out if they were going to trade somebody and, whether or not they decide to start redoing some contracts from some older veterans. I mean, this just tells me lots of shots on goal. The top of their draft, the first two picks are going to be immediate starters.
Yep.
This also looks like a bunch of special teams guys. As well as potential backups. I don't necessarily know that you'll find a starter out of the rest of those guys.
Well, Joe Shane was getting criticized for that Wan'Dale Robinson pick, that second-round pick. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know how his career is going to go, but the critics of him were more like, this is a small 5'9", gimmicky wide receiver.
Yeah, a guy by the name of Tyreek Hill was that too.
Exactly. So we've seen guys like that end up working out, but maybe they thought, you could get him a little bit later in the draft as opposed to picking him where they did in the second round. But, I mean, there are plenty of guys that are of that stature that have that type of speed that are wrecking games and wrecking defenses. So I'm excited to see the guy. And add him to this mix and this offensive mix and Kadarius Toney and the whole thing. So, I don't know. I try to be careful with the draft stuff. The only time I really get on teams is if they waste a first-round pick on a position that I think was silly. Like, last year I didn't think it was smart for the Pittsburgh Steelers to go and get a running back in the first round when Ben Roethlisberger was his last season, but they were kind of doing what the Giants were doing and trying to go for it one more year with the old quarterback. But this is a couple of teams who, as you said, want to bring in as many talented guys as possible because they had all the picks and they got a long way to go with their roster construction. And coming out of it, at least at the very top of the draft, everybody feels pretty good about the Jets and Giants.
Yeah, I just think that this kid, in the eyes of Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll and everybody else, is Tyreek Hill. Now, I don't know if he'll become Tyreek Hill, of course, but I think they see a lot of similarities. They see a playmaker. They see probably a punt returner, maybe a kick returner. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do with a kid like this. And they believe me, they spend time and hours and, analytics and scouts, and everybody gets to know the kid, and they really dive deep into him, and they realize that, maybe he's a playmaker that we need to help Daniel Jones or Tyrod Taylor. So I'm not. All I know is the first 2 picks are going to be starters. That's what I know. They took 2 guys that are going to be starting for the New York Giants on day 1. They were probably the safest picks, and the fact that Shane took Thibodeau before he took Neal because he knew that there were going to be plenty of offensive tackles, but we were running out of edge rushers, to me is really where, that's where the money spot was, and they did exactly the right thing. Now, as far as these other 9 players, who knows? You never know, but you're going to see a bunch of them on special teams, things of that nature. They're trying to get faster. That's obvious. Mm-hmm. And, and for the Jets, they get the kid Ruckert from
Lindenhurst.
Great story.
Yeah, it was a Jet fan growing up. His dad was a diehard Jet fan. His dad stands up and starts, crying, hugging him because his son just went to his favorite team. I mean, that's about it. So we got a call. I feel bad because we had a caller call up and ask us about Jeremy Ruckert to the Jets, and my response was, no way. They signed 2 tight ends in the offseason. There's no way the Jets are going to take him. And they ended up taking him with the 101st pick in the 3rd round. But I do feel good about Jimmy in Virginia, who called us up and said he'd never been to a Jets game in his life and became a Jet fan in 1971, and the Jets were listening. And we got Al sent the number over to someone working for the Jets, and they put it together. And Spanky, and he was able to get some tickets for.
They took care of Jimmy. Yes,
they took care of Jimmy. The New York Jets were listening, and they took care of Jimmy.
They really
in
did.
Virginia.
Nice little story. But the Breece Hall pick, the Ruckert pick.
Yeah.
These are all quality guys. And Breece Hall was by most measures the number 1 running back in the draft.
Scored a ton of touchdowns in his collegiate career.
Oh, God. I mean, so productive. A lot of these players that the Jets have taken are productive and are going to have opportunities to play right away. That's another thing. And they tried to add, when we were good in Cincinnati, we had 3 tight ends. They didn't all catch the ball. Some guys were H-back. Some guys lined up at fullback. Mm-hmm. And the more flexible Jeremy is and the more apt he is to play, he'll probably play some special teams as well. 3rd-round draft picks very rarely ever get cut. He's going to make the team. He's going to be on the team. He's a damn good blocker. Wasn't used a lot as a receiver in college simply because look at the wide receivers they had.
Yep.
So he did catch balls, and he was good. He was very, didn't drop a lot of balls thrown his way. So that's good, too. So I was happy for him. And I was also happy for Jack Cohn. I know we talked about this a little bit last week, but Jack Cohn, local boy from Sayville, ends up signing a free agent contract with the Colts. And this is why it's important that these kids go and play in these all-star games.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Colts coaching staff coached Jack Cohn out of the East-West Shrine game. So they got to know him. And, and he's going to go work with Frank. And the thing I know about Jack, and Phil Simms has told me this more, as each year has passed and he's worked with Jack, like he's a sponge. Like he'll take coaching. I think that, Frank's going to coach him hard. He's going to be in a great room with Matt Ryan, and it's going to be a really highly intelligent offensive room talking about the NFL and how to become an NFL pro. So hopefully Jack's going to the right spot. And if worst, he's on the practice squad.
Yeah, and I felt great for him because that is a spectacular place to land for all the reasons that you said. And I do believe that he is going to cut through because of the type of guy that he is and how hard of a worker he is as well. So I'm excited for him. I wish he would have been drafted. Wasn't drafted, but he ended up in a great place.
Think Mike White.
Yeah,
sure.
You
got to think Mike White. You got a guy that's going to, somewhere latch on, get involved, love the game of football, be all over it, and then when his chance comes, he makes the most of it. And I think we were all surprised by Mike White's success last year. And I think that's kind of what the Colts are hoping, that, this is a kid that may not play this year, but in 2 or 3 years, then all of a sudden he becomes something, and the coaches trust them, assuming that the coaches are still there, and everything works out great. So I don't know. At least today, I feel like it's a good spot for him. Just like for Jeremy, it's a great spot for him too. So good for those guys.
Mets, Yanks, NFL draft, NBA, NHL playoffs. It's all happening. It's May, and it's on Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.